Hello students, welcome to your WebSeek.Academy English channel. Today, we are going to discuss the article Where There Is a Wheel, which is a part of your second PUC English syllabus. This powerful and inspiring piece is written by P Sainth, a well-known Indian journalist and writer who focuses on issues related to rural India, poverty, and social justice. A note on the writer. P Sainth, born 1957, is an Indian journalist and photojournalist focusing on social problems, rural affairs, poverty and aftermath of globalization in India. He is the rural affairs editor of The Hindu, a regular contributor to The Telegraph in Kolkata. He also writes for the fortnightly Frontline and the daily Business Line in Chennai. Sainth has received close to 40 national and international journalism awards and fellowships in 30 years as a journalist, including the Ramon Magsaysay Journalism Award in 2007, the European Commission's Natali Prize in 1994, the Boamar Journalism Prize from the UNFAO in 2001, the Amnesty International Global Award for Human Rights Journalism in 2000, and a B.D. Goenka Award for Excellence in Journalism in 2000. In June 2011, Sainth was conferred an Honorary Doctor of Letters degree, D.Litt, by the University of Alberta, the university's highest honor. Where There Is a Wheel Summary. This lesson is an article taken from a book titled Everybody Loves a Good Drought by P. Sainth, a popular photojournalist. Besides giving a brief history of cycling as a social movement in Pudukkottai, he also reports how a group of women initiated the remaining women in the village to learn cycling so as to use it as a symbol of independence, freedom and mobility. Finally, he also comments on the general impact of this on women's lives in the Pudukkottai district of Tamil Nadu. The author begins the article commenting that when people hear the caption, "Cycling as a social movement," it may sound far-fetched to them, but it is true. Then the author remarks that people find curious ways of hitting out at their backwardness, of expressing defiance, hammering at the fetters that hold them. The author then quotes statistics to prove his point. He reports that over the past 18 months, 1 lakh rural women have taken to bicycling as a symbol of independence, freedom and mobility, and their number constitutes over 1/4 of all rural women in Pudukkottai. Among them, over 70,000 of them have taken part in public exhibition contests to proudly display their skills, yet the desire to learn cycling and the training camps continue. The author then tells us how two of the participants, Jamila Bibi and Fatima, a secondary school teacher, feel about their achievement in cycling. The author quotes Jamila Bibi, who says, "It's my right, we can go anywhere. Now I don't have to wait for a bus." Similarly, he quotes Fatima also. Fatima says, "There is freedom in cycling. We are not dependent on anyone now. I can never give this up." Jamila, Fatima and their friend Afghani, all in their early 20s, have trained scores of other young women in the art of cycling. The author remarks that cycling has swept across this district. Women agricultural workers, quarry laborers and village health nurses are among its fans. They are now being followed by Balwadi and Anganwadi workers, gem cutters, school teachers, Brahmasevikas and midday meal workers. The vast majority are those who have just become literate. The district's vigorous literacy drive led by Arivoli Iyakkam, Light of Knowledge movement, has been quick to tap this energy. The author has spoken to every one of these neo-literate, neo-cyclist women and asserts that there is a direct link between cycling and the neo-cyclist's personal independence. Then he reports the opinion of the coordinator who says that the cycling training has given confidence to women and it has reduced their dependence on men. The author says that he often sees a woman doing a 4-kilometer stretch on her bicycle to collect water, sometimes with her children. He opines that women can cart provisions from other places on their own. Initially, these women had to put up with vicious attacks on their character. Even filthy remarks used to be made by men. He praises the Arivoli organization for volunteering to give social sanction to cycling. Next, he mentions the cycle training camp that he had seen in Kilkuruchi village. He says that it was an unusual experience to see all the prospective learners who had turned out in their Sunday best. They appeared to be determined to learn cycling. The Arivoli activists produced songs for the neocyclists to encourage bicycling. The author quotes a line which says, "Oh sisters, come learn cycling, move with the wheel of time." Then, we learn that those who got trained in cycling came back in large numbers to help new learners. They worked free of charge for Arivoli as master trainers. Then, he comments that there is not only a desire to learn but a widespread perception among them that all women ought to learn cycling. In the next part of the report, the writer gives a brief historical background to cycling as a social movement. He reports that in 1991 a former district collector by name Sheila Rani Chunkat hit on the idea of training female literacy activists so as to reach women in interior villages. She also included mobility for women as a part of the literacy drive, because lack of mobility among women played a big role in weakening the confidence of women. It is reported that Chunkat paid personal attention to this idea and motivated the banks to give loans to women to buy cycles. Each block was assigned specific duties in promoting the drive. The district collector met with great success in her plan. Due to the initiative taken by her, the literacy activists learned cycling. This encouraged the neoliterates, and their example was followed by every woman in the village to learn cycling. This led to a shortage of ladies' cycles. Then the women started using gents' cycles. In fact, some women even preferred gents' cycles because it has an additional bar from the seat to the handle. The author then says, even to this day thousands of women here ride gents' cycles. On the International Women's Day in 1992, over 1,500 female cyclists with flags on the handlebars, bells ringing, took Pudukkotty by storm. The town's inhabitants were stunned by this all-women's cycle rally. The writer describes the reactions of the men to this social movement. The author gives the opinion of S. Kankarajan, owner of Ram Cycles. The cycle dealer says that he had seen a rise of over 350% in the sales of ladies' cycles in 1 year. But the author believes that the percentage of increase mentioned by the cycle agent is incorrect because a lot of women have gone in for gents' cycles as they could not wait for ladies' cycles. Then the writer remarks that not all males were hostile and some men were even encouraging in their attitude. For instance, Muthu Bhaskaran, a male Arivoli activist, wrote the famous cycling song that has become their anthem. The writer cites the example of Manormani to illustrate how learning to ride a bicycle can help stone quarry workers also. The 22-year-old Manormani is a stone quarry worker and Arivoli volunteer. She works in Kudimianmalai stone quarries. According to her, it is vital for her co-workers to learn cycling because their working places are a little cut off from the main road. Those who learn cycling can be mobile, which means they can go home after work and come back the next day. Otherwise, they will have to stay there alone in a new place facing a lot of problems or travel by bus every day. The writer says that in 1992, more than 70,000 women displayed their cycling skills at the public exhibition contests run by Arivoli. The UNICEF, who were impressed with the achievement of these activists, sanctioned 50 mopeds for Arivoli women activists. The writer gives his views about cycling as a social movement. He says that cycling boosts income. Some of the women sell agricultural or other produce within a group of villages. For such people, cycling saves time. Secondly, cycling gives you more time to focus on selling your produce. Thirdly, it helps you to cover a larger area. Lastly, it can increase your leisure time too. Earlier, small producers had to carry their produce only by bus and had to depend on fathers, brothers, husbands, or sons even to reach the bus stop. They could cover only a limited number of villages to sell their produce as they had to do so on foot. Moreover, these women had to rush back early to tend to the children and perform other chores like fetching water. Those who had bicycles now combined these difficult tasks without any anxiety or tension. Even now one can see along some remote road, a young mother, with a child on the cycle bar and produce on the carrier. She could also be seen carrying 2 or even 3 pots of water hung across the back, and cycling towards work or home. Finally, the author opines that for these neoliterate neo-cyclist women, more than the economic aspect, the sense of self-respect it brings is vital. The author admits in a confessing tone that never before had he seen that humble vehicle, cycle, in that light, the bicycle as a metaphor for freedom. Before concluding, the writer quotes Kannammal, who opines that for rural women it is a Himalayan achievement like flying an aeroplane. In the last paragraph, the author adds a postscript. He says that in April 1995, when the author returned to Pudukkottai, the craze for learning cycling was still on. 3 years later. Then he adds that a large number of women were unable to afford bicycles, which then cost around 1,400 rupees each. He concludes saying that Pudukkottai remains unique among Indian districts for the stunning proportion of women who have taken to cycling and the enthusiasm for gaining the skill among the rest. Where there is a wheel, comprehension 1. 1. What does cycling as a symbol of social mobility mean? Answer. Cycling through the word evokes minute meaning. It is broader when it comes to society. Social mobility has 2 meanings literally. It moves society from one place to another, which means the transportation of people, and it also connotes the progress of society. When women want to go for a market, they do not want to wait for men, they could go on themselves. 2. When Jamila Bibi says, "It is my right. We can go anywhere," she is A. asserting her right to move freely. B. suggesting mobility leading to liberation. C. expressing her indifference to dirty remarks. D. boasting about her cycling skill. Answer. A. asserting her right to move freely. 3. What does bicycle represent for the rural women? Or mention any one of the symbols which bicycling represents for the women. Answer. For the rural women, bicycle represents freedom. 4. What is common between neoliterates and neo-cyclists? Answer. Cycling as a social movement was first popularized by the neoliterates. These neoliterates are the ones who became neo-cyclists. 5. Enforced routine and male-imposed barrier refer to A. confining women to the kitchen. B. subjecting women to drudgery. C. status of women in a patriarchal society. D. lack of freedom of movement. Answer. C. status of women in a patriarchal society. 6. How did the men react to women taking to cycling? Answer. Initially, women had to put up with vicious attacks on their character. Some of the men made filthy remarks. But later, once it got social sanction from the Arivoli organization, some menfolk became less hostile and some of them even encouraged the women to learn cycling. 7. What do the phrases, "flags on the handlebar" and "bells ringing" suggest? Answer. The phrases "flags on the handlebar" and "bells ringing" refer to the Women's Cycle Rally organized on International Women's Day in 1992, in which 1,500 female cyclists took Pudukkottai by storm. 8. Why did UNICEF sanction mopeds to Arivoli women activists? Answer. The UNICEF sanctioned 50 mopeds to Arivoli women activists in appreciation of their work of initiating more than 70,000 women to display their cycling skills at the public exhibition contests in a single week in 1992. 9. Why is the cycle called the humble vehicle? Answer. The word humble means poor, the lowest in rank. The writer calls the cycle a humble vehicle because it is the most common and ubiquitous vehicle seen even in the most remote of places, a common man's vehicle. Where there is a wheel comprehension too. 1. What is the role of Arivoli Iyakkam in liberating women? Answer. In Pudukkottai district there is an organization called Arivoli Iyakkam, Light of Knowledge Movement, which spearheaded the district's vigorous literacy drive. N. Kannammal is the central coordinator of Arivoli. This literacy organization conducted literacy campaigns among rural women and created a good number of neoliterates. Later, the Arivoli literacy activists, led by N. Kannammal, pioneered the cycling learning movement and thus gave cycling a social sanction. Later, at Kilkuruchi village, the Arivoli activists conducted a cycling training camp for their neoliterates as well as other women enthusiasts. A large number of those who learned cycling come to train new learners as master trainers, and this way they helped nearly 70,000 rural women to learn cycling. Thus, by teaching them to read and write along with cycling, the Arivoli organization liberated a vast majority of the rural women in the Pudukkottai district. 2. In what different ways has the cycle empowered rural women? Or discuss how the cycling movement has empowered the rural women of Pudukkottai. Answer. Cycling empowers women in many ways. It gives them confidence, which results from being self-dependent and free to carry out their duties and responsibilities without depending on the menfolk. For example, womenfolk can fetch water from even the remotest source and cart provisions on their own. In this way, cycling emancipates womenfolk psychologically. Cycling also empowers women economically and politically. Cycling boosts their income. Some of the women who sell agricultural or other products within a group of villages can save a great deal of time by going to such places on their bicycles. Secondly, it gives them much more time to focus on selling their produce. Thirdly, it enlarges the area they can hope to cover. Finally, if they choose to enjoy their leisure, cycling gives them a lot of leisure also. These women, besides performing these jobs, can also perform other chores. Finally, to top it all, it gives them self-respect. They can also participate in political work. 3. Why does the author describe the Arivoli cycling training camp's unusual experience? Answer. One of the pioneers in encouraging cycling and giving it a social sanction was the Arivoli activists. These activists conducted a cycling training camp in Kilkuruchi village. The writer, who visited the camp, calls it an unusual experience because, on that Sunday, all the prospective learners had turned out in their Sunday best. The author remarks that one could not help being struck by the sheer passion of the pro-cycling movement. The learners exuded so much enthusiasm and passion for learning cycling. 4. Do you think neoliterate women taking to cycling contributes to the literacy movement? Answer, yes. Women taking up cycling is as significant as their taking up literacy because cycling gives them mobility, freedom, and independence, which together give the women confidence to stand on their own legs. Initially, Sheila Rani Chunkat, a district collector, in 1991 intended to train female literacy activists so as to enable them to spread literacy among women in the interior. Therefore, she included mobility as a part of the literacy drive. However, cycling played a much more significant role than literacy in the lives of the womenfolk. It gave them confidence, freedom, and independence to eke out an independent existence. Cycling helped them stay attached to their children and family and yet be financially independent. It also helped the women to share family responsibilities with the menfolk. 5. How does Sheila Rani Chunkat, the district collector, promote the empowerment of women? Or bring out the role of Sheila Rani Chunkat in the empowerment of women in Pudukkottai? Answer. In 1991, Sheila Rani Chunkat was the district collector of Pudukkottai. As a part of the female literacy drive, she wanted to train female literacy activists so that literacy would reach women in the interior. She had realized that the lack of mobility among women played a big role in undermining their confidence. Therefore, she included mobility as a part of the literacy drive. Naturally, literacy activists learned cycling first. This inspired the neoliterates also to learn cycling. This, in turn, inspired every woman in the village to learn cycling. The literates, having become neocyclists, encouraged every woman in the district to learn cycling by organizing cycle training camps. Thus, Sheila Rani Chunkat became instrumental in cycling becoming a social movement in the Pudukkottai district. This way, Sheila Rani Chunkat should be commended for promoting freedom of women by including cycling in her literacy project. 6. How did the women react to the shortage of ladies' cycle? Answer. Once, cycling, as a symbol of women's liberation, caught the imagination of the womenfolk in the Pudukkottai district. Every woman in the district volunteered to learn cycling. Not surprisingly, this led to a shortage of ladies' cycles. These women enthusiasts did not hesitate. They volunteered to buy even gents' cycles and learn cycling. Later on, many women started preferring the gents' cycle because it has an additional bar from the seat to the handle, and that way it enabled them to go out along with a child also. Even to this day, thousands of women in Pudukkottai district ride gents' cycles. Where there is a wheel comprehension 3. 1. How does P Sainth show that cycling brings about changes beyond economic gains? Ans. P Sainth presents an eyewitness report of cycling becoming a social movement. He tells us how tens of thousands of women in the Pudukkottai district of Tamil Nadu got initiated to learn cycling. The Arivoli activists led by N. Kannammal pioneered the cycling movement. As a part of their vigorous literacy drive, these activists learned cycling. Later, they organized cycling training camps for other women. Thus, it got social sanction. Once the movement became a big force, every woman in Pudukkottai volunteered to learn cycling. Towards the end of the article, Sainth says, besides giving women freedom, mobility, and independence, it also has definite economic implications. It boosts their family income. Sainth reports that a section of the women sells agricultural or other products within a group of villages. For them, cycling cuts down on time wasted in waiting for buses. Secondly, it gives them much more time to focus on selling their produce. Thirdly, it enlarges the area they wish to cover. Lastly, it can increase their leisure time. In conclusion, he says, cycling brings about changes beyond economic gains also. Cycling gives them a sense of self-respect which is vital to their sense of well-being. Thus, Sainth says that this humble vehicle has become a metaphor for freedom for these women. 2. Oh sister, come learn cycling, move with the wheel of time, How does the song suggest that the cycle could be an instrument of social change and progress? Answer. In the article titled, Where There Is a Wheel, Sainath, the writer, reports an important social movement that took place during 1992 to 94 that stunned the people of the Pudukkottai district in Tamil Nadu. There was an organization named Arivoli Lakkam, which led the female literacy movement in Pudukkottai. These Arivoli activists learned cycling so as to enable themselves to spread the message of literacy among rural women in the interior. Once the activists learned cycling, they, in turn, taught their neoliterates cycling. These neoliterates, neocyclists, trained women in cycling all over the district. During this period, Muthu Bhaskaran, an Arivoli activist, wrote a famous song to encourage rural women to learn cycling. The song is intended to call upon the women folk to learn cycling. The song conveys a simple message, and when it is sung in Tamil, the mother tongue of these rural women, its meaning is easily understood. It only calls upon the woman to set in motion her own wheel of life. Until then, the woman could not move out of the house because her mobility depended on her being able to find money to go by bus. Going by bus also depended on the permission of the menfolk. The woman needed the help of her menfolk even to sell the agricultural produce which grew on her land. This way the woman could not break the male-imposed barriers. Once she learned cycling, she got the freedom to move to any place she wanted and the freedom to do any work she wished to. This song invites the woman to learn cycling and set in motion the wheel of her life. Here, the wheel refers to progress. So, it tells a woman to learn cycling and be responsible for her own progress. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to WebSeek.Academy for more English lessons and notes. See you in the next video. Until then, keep learning and keep growing.